Thanks Paperlike for being the sponsor of today's video. This is it. There has to be a difference. Well, there is. Now more than ever, it has become extremely hard to pick and choose and know what's right for a student. When I was studying engineering, I found it a lot easier to sort of know what was right and wrong for me. But with the latest Apple event, we've not only been introduced to a new iPad Air, but we've also been introduced with a tablet that now has the same M1 chip the iPad Pro has. So what's the catch, Apple? Well, there truly isn't any. In fact, this whole new iPad 5 tablet puts a big emphasis on what the iPad Pro is truly meant for. You see, back in my school days, I was carrying an iPad Pro and to be honest, it was way overkill for me and I should have probably gone with the more budget option. But now that we've got the Audi and BMW of iPads, I think this is the ultimate tablet for students. If you are looking for something that is massively better than the iPad 9 and it doesn't cost as much as the M1 MacBook Air, the iPad Air is it, which I now find it even easier to recommend. Don't get me wrong, both the iPad Pro and the iPad Air are great for students and are amazing to use. But if price is an important consideration for you, don't sweat it too much, although there are a few features that the new iPad Air is still missing compared to the iPad Pro, so saving money might not always be the best alternative for you. It's funny though, because to me both iPads look practically the same. You can only visually tell they are different by looking at their cameras. Oh, and their logos of course, but when it comes to their chassis, the physical build and design are almost identical, to the point that the bezels are not too far apart when comparing them. The numbers do say otherwise when talking millimeters, but in real life, there is literally no difference. Meaning that portability wise, it'll feel the same even though the iPad Air is 0.5 pounds lighter. What is not the same is the wide variety of colors we now get with the iPad Air. This year we get space gray, pink, purple, blue, and starlight. And I mean, just look at how good starlight looks. I find it way cooler than the couple of colors the Pro delivers. Below the chassis, both of these iPads do have USB-C. Even though the new iPad Air 5 is twice as fast as its predecessor, we still don't get the Thunderbolt speeds the iPad Pro features. But don't worry guys, for those who don't know, it still makes it possible to use it as a desktop unit. Just know that if your student life requires importing a lot of footage and transferring a lot of data from an SSD, having the Thunderbolt option from the Pro is honestly not a bad idea. Although from the testings I was doing with this little guy right here, I didn't see much of a difference, so I'm not sure if I was doing something wrong. However, I can definitely tell you that in engineering, transfer speeds aren't a useful feature at all. All the way to the top, unlike the Pro, we still get the Touch ID that was introduced to us last gen. Much rather have this because it allows you to sit at your desk and get your note taking going way faster. You won't look like a dummy in front of the classroom trying to unlock your iPad, mostly during winter. Overall, because their chassis are so similar, luckily they both support the same accessories, meaning that you can still rock the Gen 2 pen and the same cases like the Magic Keyboard. With slimmer bezels on the iPad Pro, you do gain 0.1 inch when it comes to the display. Now, that in real life is not a super noticeable thing. In fact, it makes no difference in your writing and within your multitasking workflow. If you do put them side to side, you will see the difference though. But I do think that the major differences lie between the fact that the new iPad Air still has a 60Hz screen compared to the 120Hz screen the Pro has. The 11-inch has a liquid Retina XDR display with ProMotion technology, whereas the 10.9-inch screen has a liquid Retina display with only True Tone. When it comes to writing, honestly my eyes can't see the difference. The pen latency is the same when comparing both displays, and I can definitely say that both glasses feel identical. We still get that nice laminated display so your pen doesn't look or feel like it's writing into the void. Although I do recommend you pair these up with a paper-like sheet, so you can level up your note-taking experience. Being able to transform this 60Hz LCD display and ProMotion display to mimic the feel of paper and sound is such a plus. You generally get a lot more control of the pencil when taking notes on an app like GoodNotes, mainly due to the paper-like resistance and roughness. It can make your handwriting look much better. Like that, when you have the need to print your assignments, your teachers will understand them. It's a protector that is gentle with your Apple Pencil tips. I like the fact Paper-like offers money back guaranteed for the first 100 days, and I love that it reduces the glare and fingerprints when manipulating both iPads. The only thing is that once you get used to ProMotion, it's really hard to go back to like 60 Hz. Mainly when consuming content on a timeline-like application such as Apple News. It'll just feel a bit laggy when scrolling through notes and so on. I do have to say, I don't think it's a feature that a student should worry about. The fact that both iPads deliver the same note-taking experience, honestly, it just says it all. Even when consuming content on it while I eat, I still find the screen super color accurate with their P3 wide color gamut and bright enough at 500 nits. I do confess that it gets kind of hard to consume content outside, so if you do enjoy taking notes outside, it doesn't deliver it as well as the Pro in my opinion. Just like the storage situation, but only for some people. You see, as a student, my #1 recommendation is to stick to Google Drive. I never found myself locally storing more than 50 to 60 gigabytes. The cool thing is that whether you use Notion or GoodNotes, you can choose to do your backups within your Google Drive. And the awesome thing about this is that if you need to share assignments, projects, and lectures with some people, this can simply allow you to invite them to your drive. To top it all off, you also have access to your schoolwork on any device you wish to use, unless you start printing your notes, which either device easily does when connected to a printer. So for me, it's super hard to recommend the Pro in terms of storage. However, if you are majoring in something like graphic design and web services, the Pro is what you should focus on and make sure you get enough storage. I'm not a fan of the file system on iPadOS, so even though the Pro delivers Thunderbolt speeds, getting around it is a bit complicated on either iPad, but you will be fine. Don't get me wrong, it's still really good if you want to go for the Air with a bit more storage size, even for graphic design and video editing. But at that point, I honestly recommend you sort of save a bit of your money and you go for the Pro. If you do decide to get the Pro, do note that unlike the Air, the 1TB and 2TB versions of the Pro come with 16 gigabytes of unified RAM with an M1. Which is the only difference here, since the M1 within the MacBook Air, the new iPad Air 5, and the iPad Pro all have an 8-core CPU and an 8-core GPU. However, 8GB of RAM is incredible for multitasking, where you will never run into issues for having so many apps open at the same time. So if you are someone like me who enjoys having Netflix, GoodNotes, Safari, plus a bunch of apps running in the background, you'll never have to worry about apps crashing and things automatically closing up on you to free up memory. This can only happen on workflow that require a lot of dynamic memory, such as video editing, graphic design, and even music production. And so this is where the iPad Pro truly flourishes here. Exactly what you should be gearing towards the 1TB model with 16 gigabytes of RAM in order to have storage and the performance needed to do such work. However, for most students and daily users, both iPads deliver the same experience. The M1 chip is so powerful that you only truly get to see the differences when pushing the device, provided you have the 16 gigabytes of RAM, of course, because even at that, Sidecar runs smoothly on either device when it comes to doing some Adobe XD, Photoshop, coding, and even Premiere Pro work. Between both of these devices, honestly, it's almost like the same thing. Both feel very snappy, and it's quite hard to notice the difference in terms of regular user interaction. Unlike their cameras, of course, which are quite different. Comparing a whole set of camera lenses to one single lens on the iPad Air that can do it all. In other words, we are comparing a 12 megapixel wide and 10 megapixels ultra wide camera to a simple 12 megapixel wide camera, which in front, we get a 12 megapixel true depth camera system with ultra wide for the Pro and a new 12 megapixel ultra wide camera which finally delivers center stage. And I think this is such a key feature for students. You see, with a new front face camera, Apple is able to crop the image in order to track the subject. Awesome enough, the feature does not only work on FaceTime but also on apps like Zoom, making video calls extremely easy, mainly when these calls require you to move a lot to showcase, say, I don't know, a project. I don't necessarily think that having the best camera will offer the best bang for your buck because honestly, who needs the best camera to take pictures of assignments to import them into your note-taking app? It becomes nonsense at that point. It's like saying you need the best speakers to consume your calculus lectures. Okay, well, maybe that's not the best comparison. I get it, you want good speakers because even though you might use this device extensively for school, you might find yourself consuming content on it late at night. Yes, I know, us students, we mostly use headphones or even our AirPods at best. However, if you find yourself consuming content without them, I have to say the Pro has way better speakers. I was expecting a proper 4 audio speaker setup on the new iPad Air, but sadly, we only get the 2-speaker landscape mode on the Air. Not a fan, doesn't sound as good, and it feels like it's coming from one side. I mean, just hear the difference.
Almost an evenness and oddness sort of idea. Take your theta, and we're not going to avoid it. Nice to deal with. That would be easy. That'd be y. That would be easy. It'd be x squared plus y squared.
The cool thing I do admire about the Air is that in landscape mode, the volume buttons work accordingly, which is not something that the iPad Pro seems to have. Pretty weird. Look, the takeaway here is pretty simple. The iPad Air 5 is now more than ever the best tool for students out there. In fact, I'd say it's the ultimate iPad for students. But you know what? I will make an in-depth video about it in the future. I'll deliver a proper student review for you guys to watch. I really hope this video clears some doubts and answers some questions. If you have the money, the iPad Air is the iPad to get that will last you for years to come. With M1 on this new chassis, you will not regret it. I will see you all soon. Take care.